As a kid, what was your worst my parents are going to KLL me moment? At 15 I had a party while my parents were out of town. I cleaned the house so meticulously, they would never know. Mum goes into the fridge and instantly finds a 12-pack of beer. Of all things, the only place I didn't think to check was the fridge. I thought for sure I would never see the light of day again. I was grounded for 2 months. Got my first computer. Got dial-up internet. Got Ultima Online. Got $430 phone bill. Got grounded for a year. I tried to saw the house in half. I got about half an inch and then hit some metal. Moved the saw over a little bit and then tried again, and again, and again. In total I tried about 12 times, failing each time. Then I realized I probably shouldn't have done that and tried to hide it by packing mud in the damaged area. This only drew more attention to it. My parents took the door off my room as punishment. I got off pretty easy. When I accidentally punched my sister's 2 front teeth out. We were playing around and I made a punching motion towards her mouth, intending to pull the punch at the last moment. Unfortunately I forgot that last detail and knocked her teeth clean out. There was blood on the carpet, blood on the sofa. She was crying and all I could think about was whether I could jam them back in and calm her down before my parents found out. Ditched last half of the day in 8th grade to walk to Del Taco with my friends. We were just chilling inside eating our burritos when I crap you not out of nowhere my mom walks up, starts screaming at me and in front of everyone grabs me by my ear and drags my butt to her car to take me back to school. Turns out she was on her lunch break and went to get food for her and her fellow co-workers and saw me through the window when she was in line at the drive-thru. I was scared crapless. I was about 8 and my brother was 4. We were roughhousing, as usual, and I was playing a terrifically entertaining game of do anything you can to prevent little brother getting past you. At one point, he tried to dart past me when I grabbed his arm and started swinging him around in a circle. At this point we're both laughing and having fun when his knees buckled and his head slammed into a corner of a kitchen counter. I looked on in horror at the massive newly bent section of the counter and the newly minted bulbous growth on my brother's forehead before fleeing the scene of the crime. When I was in high school, for whatever reason, I didn't have my house key when I got home. Both parents were at work, and I was too impatient to wait for them to get home. I decided to go round the back of the house and break in. Now, in my defense, I rationalized it because my ground floor bedroom window was already cracked and needed replacing. So I took a rock and just broke a hole in it so I could open it and climb in. Needless to say, my dad was not pleased. But I did get a new window pretty quickly, and it was free on warranty or some crap. Moral of the story, if it's already kinda damaged, freaking break that crap. Tried to climb on the kitchen counter by grabbing the cabinet and pulling as I hop up. The cabinet was filled with all my dad's best dishes and the whole thing came down. When I set off fireworks inside the house, I put one of those waterproof firecrackers in the toilet, to test it out. Yeah, the toilet bowl exploded. Then I crapped my pants. When I was around 12 or 13, my friends and I were wrestling around my parents' living room and throwing each other onto the couches. One of them threw me and it pushed the sofa back against a case that was full of handmade beer steins that my dad had collected from trips he'd been on and some that were handed down from my great aunt. The case tipped over and all of the steins except one were destroyed. I didn't get punished nearly as bad as I probably deserved, but I also never did anything like that again. When I found out years later that I was going to be a dad, my father gave me the one remaining stein. Pretty sure that was his passive-aggressive way of saying just wait until your kid gets older. In 5th grade I was beat up by a kid named Everett. He was bigger than me, so I went and beat up his younger brother. Hey, at least you showed his little brother how you felt. I was like 4-5 or something. My dad was a carpenter, so he always had boxes of nails lying around. My brother and I thought it would be hilarious to put a bunch of them behind all of the tires on my dad's work truck. My brother then ran down the street pretending to be running away. I told my dad that he was missing, so my dad ran to his truck, jumped in it, and drove out of the garage just to have all of his tires on his work truck get destroyed by like a dozen nails in each tire. We thought he would find our antics cheeky and funny. Needless to say, he found them cruel and tragic. That might have been the angriest I have ever seen him. Dang dude, considering tires can go up to 400 bucks, I woulda been peed too. I was playing ball inside the house when I knew I wasn't supposed to. Of course I sent the ball in the wrong direction and broke a piece of my mom's favorite porcelain statuette. I freaked, got some Elmer's glue, white craft glue, and glued the piece back. If I must say so myself, I did an excellent job lining everything up, and by the time it dried, you would be very hard pressed to notice the damage unless you were intentionally looking for it. Fast forward 20 plus years and I'm visiting mom and see the old statue, still whole. We get to talking and reminiscing about childhood and I bring up the accident with the statue. It turns out that in all those years, she had never noticed and the craft glue held. As far as I know, she still has it and the glue is still holding. Good freaking job then. When I was 11 I had an idiot moment and decided to shoplift a local convenience store after school. I don't even know what I was thinking. So I go in, look around for a bit, and grab a pack of gum, and discreetly put it in my backpack. I thought I was going to get away with it. So I go to leave, and I'm stopped by a police officer who informs me that there are cameras everywhere. Cue hyperventilation. I tell him everything he asks for, my name, phone number, address, age, where my parents work, all that. Then he takes me to his cop car. I am bawling my eyes out at this point, thinking they're going to press charges. I'm gonna go to jail. My life is ruined. My parents are going to kill me. All my friends will hate me. He drives to my house and has a talk with my dad, where he reveals that there will be no charges against me. I breathe a sigh of relief. After about 5 minutes the cop leaves. Turns out, my parents didn't kill me. They only grounded me for a week. Sometimes being scared shitless is all it takes to set ya straight. When I was 16 I was supposed to be at school and they caught me going to my boyfriend's house instead. Apparently my dad had been consistently tailing me since I got my license. When I was 14 I had to crap really bad. All my bathrooms were occupied at the moment. So I took a crap in the cat box and buried it in the sand with the cat scooper. My mom noticed one day later. MacGyvered that crap. I was going to the woods to play with fireworks with my friend when I was 13. My mom was home after just having minor surgery and was adamant that we didn't go because we would set the woods on fire. But being on painkillers, she let up and told us to be careful. Sure enough, about half an hour later we were back home freaking out because the woods had caught fire. Luckily the local fire depot contained it fairly quickly and we did not get in trouble. I am never going to live it down. Every time I visit for an extended period it is brought up. That was 10 years ago. First one. I remember in grade 6 they changed our spring break from 1 week to 2. So I decided to not tell my parents and I went to school the entire second week. Really I went to the IMCA to play RuneScape on their public computers. I only got busted because one of my friends showed up at my doorstep asking where my parents' daughter was. I can't remember the punishment, but I remember getting my butt beat before any punishment was doled out. Second, skipped out on school for over a week in high school. Heard my mother on the phone with the principal and I escaped out my window. I stayed at multiple friends' houses over the course of another week and didn't show up for school either. Eventually I got caught trying to sneak into the house to grab some food when my mother was apparently not at work. I swear walking up the stairs and seeing my mother, I must have looked like a deer in headlights. I was grounded until I moved out. I was 11 and waiting on mom to get done with talking to people after church. I asked for the keys telling her I was going to drive the car around to the front. I guess she thought I was going to just listen to the radio or something. BC I got those keys. I then drove into the brand new SUV that the claims attorney had parked on the side of the road so he could speak to his deployed son. Who lets their 11-year-old kid drive a car? I decided to do my mom a big favor by mixing all her perfumes, cosmetics, powders and lotions together to make a magic concoction. It was actually pretty cool. It was a paste that went on as a liquid and then dried, kind of powdery. She, on the other hand, was less than impressed. I would do this all the time when I was little, except I would mix it all in the sink. It's amazing any of our sinks worked after that. I had a couple friends stay over one night. We ended up smoking cigarette butts, going through the neighborhood tagging everything with our initials in chalk, and finally ended the night by calling the 1-800 number for Mrs. Cleo. We racked up roughly a $700 charge from talking on the phone so long to the psychic. Parents ended up getting the charge dropped, but still we were basically dead to our friends because we couldn't leave our houses for like a year after that. When I was 16 and the girl whom I was dating's uncle walked in on us having sex, they told my parents about a month later. Holy frick, that day sucked. The thought of this happening soon worries me to death. I can't even stand the very thought of some girl's parents coming to me to tell me that my son has been banging their daughter, because I know there is no way I will keep my poker face on and not get a crap-eating grin on my face that my boy is knocking back the nookie. Used to smoke herb in an attic adjacent to my room that I shared with my brother when we were both about 16. Been smoking together for a couple years, usually in the attic. Our door doesn't have a lock but no one was home so we thought we'd be fine. Mum gets home and we have no clue. She proceeds to come in our room and we still have no clue. She opens the door to the attic looking for us. My brother is behind me taking a huge rip from a bong. We are both incredibly high at this point with eyes redder than the devil's dong. Mum says, "Do you know how much trouble you're in?" I didn't even hesitate for a moment. I looked her dead in the eyes as my brother is ending his bong rip and said, "For what?" as if she couldn't see what we were doing. My brother just starts laughing hysterically and blowing weed smoke right in her face. I've never seen a woman so angry before. A few years later, I don't smoke anymore. Haha, I know that feel. Woke up multiple mornings and smeared crap on the wall, a few times for my parents, and once for my horrified aunt. Eventually, my parents resorted to using pins to keep my diaper shut, and when I thwarted that, they moved to the heavy-duty duct tape, but alas, I was still too clever for them. I earned the nickname Houdini, and eventually I was known as Poopcasso by the family. Strangely enough, I knew that I was in deep crap every time I did it. I'm utterly shocked that everyone missed the opportunity to call you Puddini. I broke a window because I was pee. My mom locked me out the house while she ran some errands. I threw a party one time. My mom and stepdad went out of town. Well, somehow one of our chairs to the kitchen table broke off, and I didn't know what to do. So my cousin and I thought it would be a good idea to use that Gorilla Super Glue because hey, it was super strength. We were not the brightest kids. Well, we put the chair back where my stepdad usually sits, and it gave out as soon as he took a seat. Super funny, but got in so much trouble when I had to fess up. I closed my pocket knife on my thumb. I had been taught that it was a tool and not something to just play with, but I brought it out to show my friends anyway. We were whittling when I twisted it the wrong way and it closed. I opened it, gripped my thumb, told my friends I got a small cut and needed to go home for a band-aid. They said bye and I ran home straight into the bathroom. After washing the blood off my hands and the knife, I wrapped 2 big band-aids around it and hid the knife in a box at the bottom of my closet. I knew my parents would kill me, but I was able to keep it from them. It didn't even scar. It also took 10 years for me to find that knife again and there were dried stains on the knife. Finally, so when I was in middle school, I was dared, with a reward of a $2 bill, to stick my finger through my zipper and act like it was my dong to the health teacher. So obviously who could turn that down? I prepared my pants and finger through the zipper, walked up all nonchalant, turned and said, "Hey Mrs. Z, is this the right size? Does this look normal to you?" I started to laugh and she grabbed me by the neck and dragged me into the principal's office. I was then suspended for a week, and then when I came back was forced to watch on my recess sexual harassment videos. I was almost expelled. Got home, my dad whooped my butt, and my mom laughed about it. She tried to keep a straight face but she thought it was pretty funny. TLDR. Finger through pants. Fake dong. Suspension. The day my mother told me I'm going to kill you. We owned a restaurant when I was a kid. I was homeschooled, which basically just meant that I stayed at the restaurant and worked all day. At the time of this story I was 12. My dad and brother were out of town, so it was just my mom and I. I had ordered a mandolin from the music store down the street, and it had come in that day, so I went to pick it up. The music store was owned by my friend's dad, and my friend lived above the shop. So I picked up the mandolin, and then I stayed for a while, longer than I should have. to talk. I missed the lunch rush at the restaurant. My mother was pissed. She was a very violent person. When I got back to the restaurant, she was standing in the parking lot with some old couple. Turns out that in her rage, my mother had tried to burn rubber out of the parking lot and ended up hitting this couple's car. I've never seen my mother so angry, and that's really saying something. I was a pretty quiet kid, and I had a tendency to hide and let things blow over for the most part, but my mother beat the living crap out of my older brother every single day. I'd seen her break his rib. I'd seen her throw her keys at him and catch him in the eye. One time, we were all riding in the car together and I was in the middle. She went to backhand him, and her elbow caught me in the mouth and knocked my tooth loose. So I was freaking terrified when I saw her face. And she said that line, "I'm going to kill you." I believed her. She dragged me inside and I ran straight out the back door. Next door was the social services office, and one of the social workers was the mom of my brother's best friend. She kept a room in her house specifically for my brother to come over when things got too bad at home, so I figured she'd help me. She talked to me for a bit and then went to talk to my mom. I locked myself in the bathroom in the dark and sobbed. I was so afraid. After a while, there was a knock on the door and the social worker told me to come out. When I did, my mom was there. The social worker said she's not going to let me stay with you. She held my hand as we walked back across the parking lot to the restaurant, and then she turned around and walked away. I ended up just dodging my mother and keeping the booths and tables between us until she got worn out. After that day I promised myself that I was never going to be that afraid again, and I haven't. But I've never forgotten how it felt, either. When I got my ears pierced in 4 places, I came home and went to bed immediately, out drinking. Typical 19-year-old stuff. And my dad walks into the room while I'm sleeping. He sees the piercings, grabs my earlobe and says, "When did you get these?" I replied, "Last night." He then said something I'll never forget. "Oh, cool. They look good on you," and walked right out of the room. That's when I found out my parents are bigger hippies than they let on. I didn't finish my hamburger at Steak and Shake. My dad loaded me into the car seat. Yes, I was that young and I still remember this. That's how traumatizing it was. And told me that if I didn't finish the burger before we got home, I'd get spanked. I don't know where the logic in this was, but whatever. There was no way I was gonna finish that thing, because I hated burgers back then. Like the genius I am, I shoved it under my car seat. One flaw in the plan. This was back when you had to reach under the car seat to unbuckle your kid. My dad found the smushed burger and was livid. Got a huge, yelled lecture about lying. Got spanked hard. As you can tell, I wasn't a problem child, so this was a big deal. Edit. Last line. Edit 2. Maybe traumatizing was too strong a word. I legit laugh at this memory and bring it up to my dad from time to time. He feels horrible about it. Says spanking me and my brother as a form of discipline is his biggest regret. If I didn't finish the burger before we got home, I'd get spanked. You what? Me and my brother were riding down the slight hill in front of our house on our skateboard. Not traditionally though. We were sitting on the boards pushing ourselves faster with our hands at both sides of the boards. My mother comes out and yells at us to stop because we could hurt ourselves. However, being young and dumb, we continue. Not 5 minutes later I'm pushing with my hands and place my hand slightly too far forward and too diagonal. The front wheel rides over my fingers, index to ring, and hit the nail on my index slightly wrong, breaking it off. So there I am, clutching my hand, index fingernail fully torn out hanging by a sliver, blood running down my hand, and now I have to tell mom. One time when I was in elementary school I was homesick from school. I wanted to watch a movie on demand so I bought Recess. School's out. The TV was laggy as heck, so being the impatient child I was, I clicked the button until it worked. My parents were pissed when they found out I had bought it over 150 times. Great movie though. Childhood best friend was very gullible and absolutely believed that farts ignite. I theorized that given time to ferment maybe, which led to him drinking root beer and me holding Ziplocs up to his hind end hoping to capture enough gas for our experiment. 2 weeks later we test the first one. I'm kneeling on the floor holding a lighter. He stomps on the bag. We were hoping a sudden rush of fart would work like an aerosol can. Kids are dumb. Long story short, it reeked. I dropped the lighter, the carpet lit up. He stomped it out while I ran to the bathroom to heave. I came back to a 10 inches scorch mark on the floor sopping wet with the remainder of his root beer. We decided it was best to move furniture in my room to cover the spot, just behind my door. Often mom remarked that it would be easier to open if I didn't have that one shelf in the way. A decade later I'm moving out for college and, having forgot, move the shelf revealing the charred carpet to my mom. After I explain the fart experiment she's so astounded by my stupidity she doesn't even get mad. For the record, my friend and I are now 30 and he still believes his fart set the floor on fire. But farts can ignite. When I kicked a hole in the basement wall, it was over Call of Duty I think, was 1 kill away from a nuke and died or something. I can't really remember that part of it. All I remember is just standing back, looking at the hole in disbelief and thinking about how long it was before I was gonna be able to play COD again. There were about 7 of us. My sister was 13, cousins 14 and 10. I was 6. My other sister was 4 and our other cousin was 5. The 5-year-old's brother was 3. We're at the beach and the older kids decided it was a good idea I be in charge of the 3 younger children while they walked away to possibly smoke cigarettes and weed. They couldn't have been gone for longer than 10 minutes, but when they get back they notice we're down 1 kid. We look around and find the 3-year-old face down in the shore. We run over and pull him up. He's soaked but alive and crying. We all look at each other, decide to take him back to the empty apartment and swore on our butts that we wouldn't say anything. They got mad at me as if it was my fault that I hadn't watched him well enough, but wouldn't let me help so I felt terrible and carried the guilt and was super upset about it for years. We didn't tell our parents for many years. The baby is now in his mid-20s and has no recollection of the day he almost got swept out to sea, but we remember. I was home alone one day during the summer, probably 12 or 13. My mom had left a note asking me to sweep the driveway while she was gone. Her old station wagon was parked in the driveway. I believe she was trying to sell it, and for some reason I figured I could move it myself to do a better job with the driveway sweeping. I backed out of the driveway just fine, but the neighbor's kids saw me and I couldn't manage to parallel park it in front of the house because I was 12 or 13 and didn't know how to drive. So I decided I'd put it back in the driveway. Unfortunately, I hit the gas pedal too hard and slammed into the house. And at that very moment, my dad came home for lunch. He told me later that I looked so distraught he decided not to punish me. I didn't frick around with cars again until I was learning to drive for real. When I was 15 I snuck out and took my mom's Beamer to go chill with friends. We took some ecstasy and one of my other friends was tripping on shrooms. So at the end of the night we were leaving my buddy's place and I was rolling too hard and didn't wanna drive. So mushroom buddy offered. My XTC ridden brain thought this would okay so I said let's go. The second the sucker pulls out of the driveway he backs into a fire hydrant, which leaves a massive hole in the back bumper. At this point my life is over. I thought I was completely fricked. I go home at the end of the night and park the car, hoping to God my mom won't notice the next day. I wake up, she's not home and I don't have any missed calls. So far so good, but I'm still crapping myself. Mom finally comes home and says, "You won't believe what happened. Someone hit my car in the Costco parking lot." I don't think any of you have felt the kind of relief I experienced that morning. When I was in elementary school, my friends and I got bored during recess because the ball monitor got to pick what game we should play during recess. So we would head down to the bathroom to talk about elementary school struggles like the fricking ball monitor and mean but fricking teachers. Well, in our time in the restroom we figured out we can play water fights with paper towels. We played this for a good week without getting caught and it was way better than jump rope. Yet one day this snitch from our class comes in and says you guys aren't supposed to be playing in here, and we tried to talk her down. Tell her we weren't hurting anyone. And we pleaded for her to not tell the teacher. You could tell on her smug little freaking face she enjoyed her power, so she goes and says I'll see how I feel about it later today. So we're waiting in line after recess and we treated her like a queen this whole time just so she wouldn't snitch on us. But of course she tells on us. And we get a citation and a parent-teacher conference. I didn't want my mom to see because she was going to take me out of the basketball team. So I hand her the citation she need to sign and 8-year-old me attempts to play it off as a stupid test form. Then my mom obviously reads it and she says, "What have you been doing? Why the heck are you lying to me?" And getting some sort of notice from the teacher meant I was dead at home. So I got taken off the basketball team. No TV for a month and I still had to play freaking jump rope. TLDR. My classmates snitched on me and I got in trouble with my mother and the teachers. Snitches get stitches. Smoked pot for the first time when I was 15. Yo. The buddy I smoked with got caught by his parents and knew it was only a matter of time until my parents found out I smoked too. So I decided the best thing to do was just come clean. When I told my mom, she just stared at me. Slowly I watched her eyes well up with tears. She starts sobbing. Then she says, "You did drugs. I would rather you have gotten your girlfriend pregnant." Grounded for about 6 months. Not going to school for almost 2 weeks and bad grades. I was in a state of depression when I hadn't showed up in school. I felt being overwhelmed by school responsibilities and changes in my family. When I was in 6th grade, I got into detention a lot. So when my teacher started having my dad sign the detention notes, I would forge my dad's signature. I did this for months. My dad found out about it eventually and I found out that doing that is a felony. After that, my dad didn't trust me for a few years. When I was around 10 or so, I was showing a few friends my new slingshot. Trying to hit cans on the ground got boring after a while, so I decided to set a can on one of the decorative rocks in the front yard. I should point out I have maybe 30 minutes of slingshot experience under my belt at this point, so hitting the can was going to be easy and the car right behind the can wasn't going to be an issue. I took careful aim, steadied my shot, and released. The side window of my parents' minivan shattered in slow motion. You'd also have thought my friends were training for the Olympics with how fast they ran away. I hid in a different car for what felt like ages but was probably more like 5 minutes before my mom found me. Surprisingly enough, I didn't get into a lot of trouble for it other than losing my slingshot and being grounded for a bit. When I was a junior in high school, I had just driven back from school and parked the car in the garage but was super distracted about something and had to rush inside to deal with it. A few minutes later, heard a loud crash outside. Rushed out to find that I had apparently forgotten to put the car in park and had left it in drive, and it had somehow rolled back out of the garage, down the driveway, and through our neighbor's fence. I wasn't a bad kid and had never been in trouble for anything prior, so it was quite a shock for my parents. The car was actually okay minus some scratches, but the neighbors threatened to sue them for a ton of money for a full fence replacement, even though only a few boards had any damage to them. Kinda wrecked that neighborly relationship. Even decades later, I still sometimes forget to put the stupid car in park, but modern cars won't let me take the keys out while it's still in drive. Thanks, modern cars. We used to play big games of hide and seek in my neighborhood, and during this one game, a friend and I wandered pretty far from the actual zone of search. Laying in the snow alongside someone's garage was a smoked fish of some kind, about 12-14 inches long. My friend dares me to pick it up. I pick it up, holding the tail between 2 fingers. I make my way back to where hide and seek is still happening, and for no reason that I can recall, I just launch it towards a friend's friend. It's a high loft, and it sails down and lands right on his face with a big slapping sound. He loses it. I thought I was going to die. Actually, my mom probably doesn't know about this. I should tell her. When I was 17, my dad went on vacation for a week. I lived with my mom at the time, so I, being a frisky teenager wanting to have sex without having to stay quiet, told her that my dad had asked me to stay at his place to water his plants and mow the lawn and whatnot. He hadn't, but I knew where the spare key was, so me and my boyfriend snuck in and stayed there for a week. However, the last night, we decided to stay at his place for some reason I can't remember. My dad came home that night to find the place completely trashed. Empty beer cans, full ashtrays, not a single plate or fork or anything had been washed since we came. We had set aside the whole day after for cleaning, since we thought we had time. We didn't. Waking up to my dad's text messages was not fun. I pulled a destroyed frick den before. It just happens sometimes. When I vandalized a TV in a store, they caught me on video, obviously, and my parents were pee. My dad threw a chair at me but it didn't hit me, so it's okay, haha. These stories made me realize that I was a really bad kid. A diamond Pepe. It only appears once in ever 20 million memes. This is the rarest Pepe, like in 5 seconds for good luck. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.